Hey there nation, welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate. We're back with our 4th episode of Tales from the Tackle Zone. This is our series of weekly Blood Bowl battle reports, and this is game number 4 of our current lead, which is fought between Iron Major and King Khalifa. My two friends are playing on this one, Iron Major bringing the Dwarf Giants, while King Khalifa is bringing the Reikland Reavers, and both of these teams will be throwing it down. The Dwarves do have home team advantage on this one, so they'll be playing on the Dwarf pitch. So with that being said, we're going to play some background music real quick. If you want to see exactly what the teams are bringing for this one, go ahead and pause and take a look at your own leisure. So with that being said, let's get this game on a roll. So in case you're unfamiliar with the game of Blood Bowl, it's pretty much like fantasy football, literal fantasy football. The game consists of 2 halves with 8 turns per piece, and the goal of course is to get the most touchdown by the end of the games. As you can see, the Empire is also on the near side of the table, while the Dwarves on the far side of the table, here to watch the game going down. So with the scenario rules over, let's go and talk about the first half of the game. Alright, so that takes us directly to the first half of the game with the kickoff on this one. As you can see, King Khalifa's Reikland Reavers are located on the left-hand side of the pitch, while Iron Major's Dwarf Giants are located on the right-hand side of the pitch as well. As for the tactics and plays they're going for in this one, I can only speculate. I'm not really playing in this game. I'm just pretty much taking photographs because I'm the arbitrator for the league, for our little 4-man league that we have going on as well. As you can see, both teams of course have fans. We've got Dwarves on the top as well as Empire on the bottom watching the game as well. So that being said, the Reikland Reavers will be kicking it off to the Dwarves, so we go directly to the kickoff result. So in the end, we got a cheering fan result with the Dwarves actually managed to win the roll-off on that one. So because that Dwarves have an additional re-roll for this first half of the game. Also, the ball scatters to the end zone, so because that ends up getting a touchback for the Dwarves, and Dwarf player number 7, Thorbar Olekson, which is one of their runners, he manages to get the ball. Alright, so that takes us directly to Dwarves turn number 1. As you can see here, the Dwarves start making their way down towards the top of the screen there, trying to make their run, their blitz all the way to the top wide zone, so that way they can make it all the way to the end zone and get a touchdown. Their blockers, of course, move forward and block people that are appropriate, also knock a couple of them down. Probably the biggest play on this one, though, in the end, was Dwarf player number 11, Carmen Burlinson. He throws a block directly to human player number 10, Tillman Becker, and actually caused an injury for that guy, resulting in a badly hurt result as a result of that. So because of that, Tillman Becker will not be playing for the rest of the battle report. The good news is that he doesn't have any lasting injuries, but at the same time, though, it's kind of sad that he will not be playing for the rest of the game. So here's a close-up of the top of the screen. As you can see, the Dwarves are making their way, setting up one of their Slayers to kind of use blocking, taking out the lineman there at the top. The rest of his players also moved up in blocking positions as well, kind of opening up a little window there in the wide zone. As you can see there at the top of the screen there, that's Dwarf player number 7, Thorbar Olekson, as he gets his ready to maneuver through the wide zone to get to the end zone. And here's a close-up of a brutal block by Carmen Burlinson directly into Tillman Becker, putting a badly hurt injury result on him as well. So because of that, human player number 10 will not be playing for the rest of the scenario. So that takes directly to the top of turn number 1 as well, and it ends up being a very short turn, going to an immediate turnover. What ends up happening is that human player number 3, Andre Gathvig, he's a lineman, tries to throw a block into the lineman player number 9 for the Dwarves. Femacrag Cadginson is his name. Results in a both knockdown results. Because of that, both of those goes crash into the ground and pretty much ends the drive and immediately to a turnover. And here's a beautiful close-up of the 2 linemen just kind of crashing each other and also falling to the ground at the same time, which is actually kind of sad. So that takes directly to the Dwarves turn number 2 for Iron Major, and as you can see here, they had a beautiful drive on this one. Ended up being a really powerful turn for the Dwarves. Once again, throwing a lot of blocks right down the middle of the line of scrimmage, making sure they're mowing down a bunch of the defenders that the humans have for the Reikland Reavers. Just managed to manhandle those guys and throw them down for the most part. But probably the most important drive took place at the top of the screen there, right next to the top end zone. As you can see, those Dwarf Giants just basically kind of form a gauntlet, just kind of punch right through the top of the deployment area for the Reikland Reavers, creating a nice gap in their lines, allowing Dwarf player number 7, Tharbor Orlikson, to kind of basically run through and make his way towards the end zone to make sure he gets a touchdown as well. So you can see they're very successful maneuvering as well as blocking made by Iron Major. However, probably the biggest play on this one was Dwarf player number 10, Zakrag Kazlikson, who is a lineman. He throws a block directly into a human catcher, number 2, Conrad Froelich. Managed to put a hacker knocked out result on that one. So because of that, I'm sorry, defender knocked out. There we go. I'm sorry, I apologize for that one. So because of that, the catcher ends up going into the knockout box, and he will have to wait until the halftime to see if he comes back into the game. And here's a close-up of Conrad Froelich as he's basically watching birds fly around his head after that dwarf lineman just kind of threw him to the ground in a horrible, horrible way. Pretty much ends the drive for the dwarves for this turn. So that takes us directly to the top of turn number 2 for the humans. My friend King Cleaver decides to activate player number 1, Abelhard Frode. Now that guy is usually a thrower, but because of the desperation he is facing, he decides to try to throw a blitz directly into Dwarf player number 7, the runner. That's Tharbor Orlikson. So he decides to throw a blitz into him, but unfortunately for him though, he fails to dodge out of one of the attacker's dodge zones. So because of that, he fails it and pretty much ends the drive on that part as well. And here's a close-up of Abelhard Frode just managing to miss the dodge of the tackle zone right there from that blitzer to the right of the player. So because of that, he goes crashing down, results in an immediate turnover from the directly towards the dwarves, which is pretty rough. So that takes directly to the top of turn number 3. So my friend Iron Major decides to activate Dwarf player number 7, Tharbor Orlikson, his runner. He sends him all the way to the end zone, and touchdown! Resulting in the very first touchdown for the Dwarf players on this one. So right off the bat, well, it took them 3 turns, and the Dwarves made a successful running game all the way to the end zone, securing their very first touchdown for the game. And as you can see in the top there, the Dwarf Warriors of Clan Roadstalker, the Curse Company, go wild. So with that takes us directly to another kickoff. As you can see here, both Iron Major as well as King Cleave have organized their players and both their teams off as well. As you can see, they got a nice little screening action behind the main line of scrimmage. They got the 3 players as minimum, as well as their throwers and runners in order to intercept at the back as well. So because of that, the Dwarves will be kicking off directly to the Reikland Reavers, and that takes us directly to the kickoff. So in the end, the result ended up being a riot on this one. So because of that, everybody loses a turn, which is pretty devastating for the Reikland Reavers because they definitely need that extra turn so that way they can secure themselves a touchdown, hopefully in the first half. And because the ball instantly bounced back to the end zone, ends up being a touchback and immediately goes to Abelhard Frode, player number 1 for the Reikland Reavers, who's actually a thrower, and he managed to get the ball as a result of that. So that takes directly to humans turn number 4 on this one. So you can see here, human player number 1, Abelhard Frode, managed to get the ball as well, and basically decides to try to, open up a pathway there in the bottom wide zone, so that way his players can kind of slip through for the most part as well. It does kind of make sense because Abelhard Frode is on the bottom, is a bottom catcher there, thrower there on the left-hand side, and he does have a catcher on the other side that he can throw it to as well. So it does kind of make sense to kind of go for that play. So because of that, he decides to activate player number 9, Gilbrecht Gottgraf, who's actually one of his blitzers. That guy actually throws a block directly into Dwarf player number 11, Carmen Berlinson, but both of them were knocked down on that one as well. Plus, King Khalifa also used one of his rerolls in order to get that result as well. So because that pretty much ends the drive and caused an immediate turnover. So here's a close-up of Gilbrecht Gottgraf trying to throw a block directly into Carmen Berlinson, resulting in both of them being knocked down and an immediate turnover. Alright, so that takes directly to Dwarf turn number 5, and on this one it actually ends up being a pretty, low-key turn for the most part. Once again, most of the Dwarf players do try to move through the line of scrimmage directly towards the screen of defenders that are protecting their throwers for the most part, so a lot of movement taking place there. However, what ended up happening is that Dwarf player number 9, Fimikrag Kadgensen, tries to blitz human player number 4, Aegis Koenig, but it results in an immediate knockdown result there on the top of the screen there. So because of that, both of them go crashing down, and also once again resulting in immediate turnover. And there's a close-up of those 2 players just basically headbutting each other in the head, and they both go crashing down and pretty much ending the drive for that one. So that takes directly to human turn number 5, and probably the most dramatic move that took place is that Abelhard Frode decides to move up and hand off the ball to his catcher number 8, which is Madrid Hofer. And because of that, Madrid Hofer decides to go for it and decides to move all the way down to the bottom end zone, which is a nice little hole that was opened up by the Dwarf players as it became too overly aggressive trying to get through the line of scrimmage. So because of that, they kind of slipped right through Iron Major's main line as well. So because that, Madrid Hofer actually goes for, I think, moving up 10 spaces in total all the way there to the middle of the Dwarfs' half of the pitch, pitch as well. At the same time, he also activates the rest of his players. He kind of goes for this kind of screen maneuver using one of his blitzers, as well as one of his linemen, as well as his ogre, and decides to create like a little nice little defensive perimeter around Madrid Hofer as well, which is kind of nice. So the team kind of moves in order to protect him for the most part. However, human player number 5, Landrek Mackholt, which is actually one of his linemen, does try to throw a block, and a dwarf player number 2, Noren Zakrondason, which is actually one of his troll slayers, end up being the result of being both of them being knocked down. As a result of that, immediately ending the drive for the Reikland Reavers on this one. So here's a close-up of catcher Madrid Hofer as he tries to make his way down the drive along the wide zone there, heading directly to the Dwarves end zone in order to get himself a touchdown with a nice little defensive screen as well. He's got 2 blitzers watching him as well as an ogre, so pretty good defense. The only thing he's got to worry about, of course, is that his front is kind of vulnerable from attack, but you know, not everything is perfect in Blood Bowl. And there's a close-up of Landrek Mackholt trying to go into Noren Zakrondason, who is one of the Troll Slayers, and resulted in both of them being knocked down as well, ending the turn and as well as causing immediate turnover. So that takes us directly to turn number 6 for Iron Major, and a lot actually happened in this game, so we're going to talk about that real quick. First of all, dwarf player number 1, which is one of the runners, his name is Othgrin Zakmirson. He blitzes directly into human player 8, Madrid Hofer, which is the catcher. As you can see there, he knocked into him, basically kind of pushed him back as well, which is kind of rough, which caused the ball to fumble as well, heading down. And that's probably the first half of the major action that took place in this round. So here's a close-up of that play that took place with Othgrin Zakmirson blitzing directly into Madrid Hofer, knocking him over as well as causing the ball to fumble. So that's the first half of the drive that took place. As you see here, for the rest of the turn, most of the dwarf players start moving down to the south as well, trying to engage the rest of that little pocket as well. We got troll slayers and linemen going in there, throwing around blocks, knocking around the blitzer there on the left-hand side, as well as making sure that that ogre is inside his tackle zone, so that way he can't move as well. So for the most part, that's pretty much what kind of occurred for the most part. Dwarves kind of trying to retrieve the ball as best they can. However, what ends the turn, though, is dwarf player number 6, Morgrond Athenson. He blocks human player number 11, Bernthold Reese, but unfortunately results in an attacker down result. So because of that, pretty much ends the drive on this one and causes immediate turnover. Which takes us directly to humans turn number 6 on this one. So because of that, what ended up happening is that human player number 9, which is a blitzer, he decides to blitz directly into dwarf player number 1, Othgrin Zakmirson, and he actually managed to do a push when he ended up doing, actually pushing him directly into the crowd, resulting in a knocked out result for Othgrin Zakmirson. So because it goes directly back into the dugout in case he's knocked out for the turn as well. At the same time, while that is occurring, though, however, human player number 3, Andre Gaffik, he decides to throw a block directly into dwarf player number 8, Rogund Thorgunnason. It actually ends up being a both knocked down result as well, so because that pretty much ends the turn and causes a turnover. So here's a close-up of Gilbreth Godfgraf basically throwing Othgrin Zakmirson directly into the crowd and actually resulting in a knockout, which is pretty good for him. And as you can see in this one as well, Othgrin Zakmirson goes directly to the dugout for a knockout, so he will not be participating for the rest of the first half of this game. So because of that, it takes directly to dwarf turn number 7 on this one. So what ended up happening is that dwarf player number 10, Zaggrag Kazligson, decides to pick up the ball and decides to go for it. So you can see their lineman decides to just kind of lead the charge for the most part, as the rest of the dwarf players maneuver to the bottom of the wide zone to make their way directly towards the Reikland Reavers end zone, so that way they can score themselves a touchdown. So you can see there most of the team is kind of maneuvering in order to get that as well. Probably, as you can see, probably one of the biggest moves that ended up happening for this one is that dwarf player number 5, Grimgrod Skargason. He throws a block directly into human player number 11, Berthold Reese, ends up resulting in a badly hurt injury as well. So because of that, that's the second member of the Reikland Reavers who will not be participating for the rest of the game, which is pretty rough for my buddy King Khalifa. Here's a close-up of that drive that took place with that badly injury result as well. And since the Dwarves realize they can't make their turn and try to make a touchdown by the end of the game, they decide to take the knee for the rest of this turn. Same thing with my friend King Khalifa realizing he won't be able to get a touchdown for this first half. So both two teams take knees and resulting in immediate turnover for the halftime. So with that being said, we're going to take a quick little commercial break and talk about exactly the halftime scores for the game between the Dwarf Giants and the Reikland Reavers. And I don't care what anybody says, that little halftime break was streets ahead. And that's for all you community fans out there. So with that being said, that directly takes us to the kickoff on this one. As you can see, both teams announced which side. The Dwarf Giants are now looking on the left-hand side, but the Reikland Reavers are on the right-hand side now as well. So basically what ends up happening is that the Dwarves, our major, will be kicking off the ball directly to King Khalifa. King Khalifa will be receiving the ball for this drive. So with both teams lined up, let's go and talk about the kickoff result real fast. And as you can see in this screen right here, right on this screenshot right here, player number 7, Deckmar Grunewald, the ball just lands right next to him as well. Ends up in a riot, however, so because of that, both the teams will lose a turn for the second half of the game, so that part's kind of rough as well. So with the kickoff result over with, go directly to human turn number 3. And so here's the result for human turn number 3 on this one. So as you can see here, what ends up happening, unfortunately, is that it's a very short game. Not much has really changed. Human player number 7, Deckmar Grunewald, tries to grab the ball, and unfortunately for him, though, he fails it. So because of that, King Khalifa decides to use up his one remaining reroll that he has, and unfortunately, he fails again. So because of that, the ball fumbles down to the bottom there, another space, and immediately causes a turnover as well. And as you can see, there he is, just with his head hanging low because the ball decided to move away from him. Deckmar Grunewald is sad and crying on the inside because he can't pick up a football off the ground. Which takes us directly to turn number 3 for the Dwarves. And the Dwarves had a very successful drive on this one, pretty much going on the offense, just trying to punch right through the line of scrimmage as best they can. The 3 linemen right there in the center of the line, they managed to push back as well as knock over the ogre that was right there in the center line as well, making the entire center of the Reikland Reavers collapse at the same time. While that's occurring, the rest of his team also moves up forward, either engaging directly into tackle zones to prevent players from making spaces, or they're actually pushing and knock over guys in the wide zones as well. Even both the throwers move up to kind of catch up for the rest of the team, so that way they can go on the offense and head directly towards the end zone of the Reikland Reavers. And here's a close-up of the center line of scrimmage. Probably the most dramatic action took place right here, where the Dwarves managed to push back the entirety of the Reikland Reavers defensive line back a couple of spaces as well. So that part was super impressive. In fact, the turn just kind of ended just because there's no more actions that the rest of the Dwarf players can make. So that takes us directly to turn number 4 for the humans, and not much really happens. Unfortunately for my buddy King Khalifa, he decides to activate player number 5, Lanrig Mackholt. He decides to blitz directly into Dwarf player number 8, Wargund Thoragunson. There we go. That's his name. But it ends up being a knockdown result, so because of that, Lanrig basically crashes into the Troll Slayer and collapses and doesn't do really much of anything, which is to be expected when you try to take on a Troll Slayer. And here's a close-up of Lanrig Mackholt, who thought he was hard, but he crashed directly into the Dwarf Troll Slayer and realized he was actually as soft as cotton, and he goes crashing directly to the bottom of the pitch, resulting in a turnover. And as fate would have it, Dwarf player number 8, Rorgun Thoragunson, the same Dwarf Troll Slayer, who managed to stop a blitz, tries to block player number 8, which is a catcher of all things, Madrid Hofer, but unfortunately for him, though, he is knocked down as well, ended up being an attacker knockdown result. My buddy Iron Major did try to use one of his rerolls to correct that, and then he masked that was the second result that ended up happening. So because of that, the Dwarf who thought it was hard ended up not being hard at all, because the lonely catcher was too much man for him. And here's a close-up of that catastrophe as he smashes directly into him, and he also collapses as well, resulting in a turnover. So that takes us directly to turn number 5 for the humans. If you're wondering why the light looks different, where I was kind of like a bluish color in the previous photos and now it's kind of like a reddish color, the reason why is I do have to apologize, you guys. The sun from the window was causing a lot of backlighting to take place, and I was just snapping photos. Didn't realize how much of a shadowing effect it was causing from the backlit effect from the window, so I do apologize for that, you guys, for most of the game. It wasn't until we got the second half that I realized, hey, my photos are coming kind of blue looking, and it's kind of hard to see the characters because everything is backlit. So because of that, I do apologize once again. So I closed the curtains to the window so that way we can see the photos better. So if you're wondering why there's a quality switch, that's why. So I do apologize for that once again. Anyways, back to human turn number 5. So human player 7, Deckmar Grunewald, he actually managed to redeem himself by picking up the ball this time, and he decides to passes it to human player number 8, Madrid Hofer, with a complete pass as well. Manages to slip in through the lines right there in the bottom of the end zone, wide zone, caused by a hole that was created by all the Dwarf players that are basically just kind of blocking out the way. So he just kind of goes for it, moves up 10 spaces right through the gap as well, which is pretty exciting as well. In the end, though, the drive ends up finishing early because human player number 6, Max Herzog, decided to throw a block directly into Dwarf player number 10, Zach Grag Kazlikson, resulting in a both knockdown result as a result from that. So here's a close-up of that beautiful catch by player number 8, Madrid Hofer, earning himself a star point as well as for Dekmar Grunewald as well. And he decides to go for it twice, actually making it 10 spaces down the wide end zone, heading directly towards the end zone so that way he can manage to get his touchdown. And here's a close-up of Max Herzog trying to smash Reikland to Zach Krag Kazlickson, and he goes down as a result of that, which is actually kind of crazy because it was actually Zach Krag Kazlickson that managed to knock down the Ogre. So, you know, go figure for that one. So that takes us directly to turn number 5 for the Dwarves, and for the most part, all they're really doing is moving as quickly as they can directly towards player number 8. So you can see there, Madrid Hofer is now being surrounded by a huge tidal wave of Dwarves who are running as fast as they can to smash into him because they want to stop him from making a touchdown. So that part is intimidating as well, because look at you can see all the Reikland Reavers, man. They're just kind of knocked over like bowling pins for the most part, so that part was kind of crazy. And here's a close-up of that turn. As you can see there, the lone catcher being surrounded by a huge mob of Dwarves moving up in order to try to stop him from getting to the end zone, which is pretty intimidating. So that takes us directly to turn number 6 for the humans, and unfortunately, player number 8, Madrid Hofer, fails to dodge. So because of that, he fumbles the ball, goes crashing down as well, landing to immediate turnover as well. As you can see there, the ball just kind of bounces a couple of spaces as well. So that part was just absolutely devastating for the Reikland Reavers. And here's a close-up of that failed dodge attempt as he goes crashing to the ground and the ball bouncing away. So that part was kind of sad. And that takes directly to Dwarf turn number 6. So Dwarf player number 7, Thorbor Olekson, the runner, he manages to pick up the ball and he actually moves as well. As you can see there, just kind of flying directly up his side of the line of scrimmage, directly where there are no more Dwarf players for the most part. And he's just kind of going all by himself, isolating himself for the rest of the team. Basically keep playing keep away in order to make sure that the humans don't get the ball for the rest of the game. And here's a close-up of that cheeky Dwarf taking the ball and running as fast as he can to make sure that no one else can catch up to it, and thus pretty much ending the game because both King Khalifa as well as Iron Major realizes for the next 2 turns there's no way that the humans can get a touchdown. So that takes us directly to the end of the game, where the Dwarves manage to secure a 1-0 victory over the Reikland Reavers. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go directly to the post-game because this game is now officially over, and we're going to talk about exactly what ended up happening to both teams. So first off, we have the Reikland Reavers for injuries. Conrad Froelich ends up being a badly injured result. That was pretty much about it for the most part, so because that makes a full recovery, he will be able to participate in his next game. For their improvement royals, actually ended up that Dekmar Grunewald actually leveled up. He got 5 more star points for being the MVP for this game. Managed to learn the accurate skill as well, getting +1 to his D6 rolls for throwing, which is really good for a thrower because, you know, that's pretty much what they do. For fame and fortune, the Reikland Reavers managed to scrounge up 90,000 gold pieces, and combined with the 40,000 gold pieces they had from the previous game, they actually bought up quite a bit. They bought another reroll for their team, giving their team a grand total of 3 rerolls now. They also bought themselves a Bloodweiser keg as well to help out any one of their knocked out team members, and they also purchased 3 more points in Fan Factor to basically adjust their fame for the most part as well. For the league stats, they ended up with 2 touchdowns as well as 0 casualties, and they also have 0 league points at this point because they're not doing too well. Their current record now is at 2 wins and 2 losses, and their new team value now is at 1,130,000 gold pieces. So we jump over to the winners on this one, the Dwarf Giants. For injuries, nobody on the team ended up with an injury, so because of that, everyone was perfectly fine on that one as well. For their improvement roles, Thorbor Olekson, the runner, he actually ends up getting an accurate skill result as well because it looks like my buddy Iron Major is going to try to go for a throwing team on this one. He gets +1 to his throws, which is actually pretty good for him because he already has an agility of 3, which is pretty good for him, and getting that +1 additional accuracy will make him just as good as a human player, so that part is kind of neat as well. In the end, for fame and fortune, managed to scrounge up 150,000 gold pieces on this one. Also managed to get 40,000 gold pieces from their treasury from the previous game, earning a grand total of 190,000 gold pieces. With that 190,000 gold pieces, they purchased 2 rerolls for their team. They also purchased an apothecary as well as a fan factor of 4, bringing up their fan factor up to 6 at this point as well. Their league stats currently right now are 2 touchdown, 1 casualty, as well as 4 league points. And currently their record now is at 1 win, 0 losses, as well as 1 draw. And their new team value is at 1,210,000 gold pieces. So that's good for this one, you guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest greatest hobby news related to this channel. That's good for this one, you guys. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out and stay classy.